Hey guys, wow. You wake to a pounding on the door. No time to put on shoes, no time to think. Just noise. And men. They don't speak at first. They wear black, armored vests and thick gloves, but it's the masks that stop you cold. All black balaclavas. Eye holes only. Tactical, almost military. This isn't a dream. You are not watching a SWAT raid on TV. This is your house, your hallway, your child's bedroom just behind you, and the men do not look like officers. They look like burglars, raiders. Something worse. You probably won't survive this, or at least the version of you that used to feel safe in your own home won't. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your city and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where you're listening from. Summary, inspirational, call to action, and let's go on the journey of today's story together. You flinch as they call your name. Not politely, not even loudly, commandingly, like a war movie. Ana Garcia, open now. And though you're not Ana, you feel like you've already failed her. Somewhere in the apartment complex, a toddler begins to cry. You watch from across the street now, pulled outside with the neighbors, your bathrobe barely holding shut, shivering not from cold but confusion. The ICE agents march out a woman in pink pajama pants. You hear her wailing. Then you see her 3 kids, one in a baby carrier, one with Spider-Man sandals, and one too frozen to speak. Here's the twist. The agents are unidentifiable. No badge numbers, no visible name tags, no clear agency insignia. Their only mark is the mask, black, smooth, anonymous. Back in 2019, you might have recognized ICE officers by their navy jackets and blocky yellow lettering. Not anymore. After internal reviews and field safety concerns, the new look emerged. No announcement, no oversight. By now, your phone is out. You start filming. And they notice. They start filming you back. You scroll later that day, still shaken, looking for answers. You type ICE Agents Masks 2024 into Google, and that's when you find it. An obscure internal policy update dated February 12, 2023, buried in the ICE.gov archive. The document, titled Enhanced Operational Discretion Protocol, outlines new officer dress code adjustments. Among them, tactical masks for agent security during high-risk apprehensions. But the memo doesn't define high risk. There's no standard, no numbers, just discretion, agency discretion, which you soon learn can mean anything. A deeper dive brings you to a piece on ProPublica, tracing the timeline of this change. It started quietly in the aftermath of 2020's nationwide protests. Officers began reporting harassment, even doxing. A few ICE facilities received threats. The agency's response? Anonymize agents, eliminate names, erase faces. The goal, they claimed, was safety. But what happens when state power masks itself? According to The Guardian, by late 2023, more than 40% of ICE field operations involve masked teams, not just for raids on suspected traffickers or gang affiliates, but also for workplace sweeps, home arrests, and even courthouse detainments. There was a case in Fresno where agents showed up masked at a kindergarten, waiting for a mother on a field trip. No arrests were made. The woman wasn't even undocumented. The principal called it a horrifying mistake. Yet these decisions, like so many ICE protocols, leave no paper trail. Track Immigration confirms that while arrest totals are published, how those arrests are executed remains in the shadows. There's no public count of how many raids involve masks, no legal obligation to disclose these tactics. And still, no one's watching. Because when power wears a mask, it erases not just identity, but accountability. You find a quote from a Homeland Security advisor in Wired magazine who defended the change. We're not trying to intimidate, we're protecting our officers. The irony hits like a punch to the chest. If intimidation wasn't the intent, it sure was the result. Your neighbor, who works nights, didn't even know Ana had been taken. I thought it was a robbery, he says. I almost called the cops. You nod, because that's exactly what it felt like. Ana Garcia never expected to be famous, but after that morning, her face was everywhere, on shaky phone footage, in grainy screenshots, and later in a 4-paragraph article in the Las Cruces Sun News titled Local Woman Detained in Early Morning Operation. No one mentioned the masks. You first met her at the church shelter 3 days later. Her eyes looked hollow, as if the raid had drained the oxygen from her bloodstream. They didn't say ICE, she told you, staring at her hands. They didn't show anything, Just yelled, like we were animals. Anna came to the U.S. in 2012 with a valid tourist visa from El Salvador. She overstayed after violence erupted in her home village. Her first asylum request was denied, her appeal still pending. She'd received no prior notice of removal. She worked nights cleaning at the hospital, always paid taxes with her ITIN, and had 3 U.S.-born kids, the youngest still breastfed. When the masked men kicked in the door that morning, Anna thought it was a cartel hit. She told her 10-year-old to grab the baby and hide under the bed. I thought we were going to die. According to her eldest daughter, ICE agents refused to explain what was happening. One held Anna down on the carpet while another took photos of the children with an iPad. They kept asking if I was her daughter or just another one, the girl recalled. They didn't believe me. And here's the kicker. Anna wasn't even the primary target. A different Garcia was on their list. Same building, different unit. By the time they realized the error, Anna was already cuffed and in the van. The lead agent reportedly shrugged and said, "We'll sort it out at the facility." That facility, El Paso Processing Center, has faced scrutiny before. NPR reported that in late 2023, at least 12 detainees were wrongly held there beyond their removal order dates. No official apologized to Anna. No one even told her children where she was taken. A neighbor had to call a lawyer on their behalf. Your blood runs cold. You ask her what she remembers most. The eyes, she says, behind the masks. They didn't blink. You start piecing the puzzle together with cold, hard numbers, because feelings alone won't move Congress. From the latest track immigration data, you learn that 63% of ICE arrests in 2023 involved individuals with no criminal convictions. That's up from 53% in 2021. This means the majority of ICE activity isn't targeting dangerous criminals, it's targeting people like Anna. Parents, night shift workers, asylum seekers still in legal limbo. Then comes the chilling detail. In a Freedom of Information Act FOIA request filed by the ACLU, internal ICE field reports from 6 states confirmed that in 41% of home raids, agents wore face coverings, not for pandemic health guidelines, but for anonymity. The documents, reviewed by the Marshall Project, note that masks became standard issue in select regions after a 2022 pilot program called Operation Hide. No press release ever announced Operation Hide. It sounds made up like a cruel joke, but it's real. You also uncover a 2024 Reuters story describing an ICE raid in rural Georgia where agents wearing full tactical gear and masks stormed a trailer park at 4:38 a.m. 11 residents, all Latinx, were detained. The official report called the operation non-confrontational. That's the word they used. Non-confrontational, despite eyewitness videos showing agents with rifles drawn, screaming in Spanish-accented English. Worse, there's no legal mechanism for transparency. The ICE Enforcement and Removal Operations ERO Division is not required to report attire, equipment, or behavior during non-lethal arrests. So even if you suspect a civil rights violation, there's nowhere to file a claim about the mask. It's invisible in the paper trail. Then you stumble on something deeply strange. A promotional post by a tactical gear supplier on X, formerly Twitter, thanking federal law enforcement clients for your loyalty, especially during tough times. Attached is a photo of masked ICE agents in formation, their faces blurred. The post went viral in anti-immigrant circles, celebrated like sports team merch. And all of it, numbers, stories, shadows, leads back to one truth. This isn't just policy. It's performance, a performance of fear, projected onto the faces of the people who never signed up for this stage. You hear the justifications next, not from nameless agents or government memos, but from someone up close. Agent L, he won't give his full name, agrees to talk off the record. You meet in a public park in Tucson where he sits on a bench in jeans and a baseball cap. No mask, no badge, just a man trying to defend the thing that's now part of his everyday. You don't know what it's like, he says. People follow you home, post your wife's photo online. I had protesters spray paint my garage. He stares at the grass. The masks keep us safe, that's all. You nod. You understand fear. But you ask, what about theirs? He pauses, then says quietly, we're not monsters, but sometimes to do the job, you can't show your face. Back home, you replay his words, trying to square them with Anna's story, with the raid in Georgia, with the 6-year-old who had to crawl out from under a bed and watch masked men drag her mother away. You search for nuance, but it keeps dissolving under the weight of contradiction. Then you find an editorial in the New York Times written by a former ICE field supervisor. He argues that masks strip away what little trust the public might have had. When you can't see a person's face, he writes, you stop seeing a person. Meanwhile, social media shows the other side, pro-ICE forums praising the masks as warrior gear, comparing raids to military precision. In these corners, agents aren't public servants, they're action heroes, vigilantes. The blurring of justice and theater couldn't be starker. But what about accountability? What if an agent breaks protocol? If someone is abused, who do they accuse? That's the haunting dilemma. In federal court, a defense attorney in Phoenix argued that his client had been unlawfully detained during a masked raid, but without identifying an agent, there was no one to cross-examine. The case was dropped for lack of specific evidence. So you ask yourself, if the state wears a mask and the people can't look it in the eyes, how can justice be anything but blind? Anna didn't go back to her apartment. After a week in detention, her release was quietly arranged through a local legal aid organization. No public acknowledgement of the mistaken identity, no ICE apology, just a 3-page notice of appearance and an ankle monitor. Her case was under continued review. In legal limbo again. But that wasn't the end, just the beginning of a different kind of fallout. The landlord, citing excessive disruption and concern for tenant safety, issued a 30-day notice. It was legal, under the lease terms. Anna and her children had to vacate. Nowhere to go. The kids' school couldn't help beyond meal vouchers. The shelter downtown had a 6-week wait list. You remember standing beside her outside the old grocery store on Amador Avenue, her 2 youngest asleep in a borrowed stroller. She looked right at you and said, "I don't think I exist anymore." Her 8-year-old son, Leo, stopped speaking. At first, teachers thought it was stress. Then a counselor diagnosed him with selective mutism, trauma-induced silence. A boy who once loved telling jokes in 2 languages now wouldn't even say his own name out loud. And then came the knock-on effects. Her job disappeared. Technically, she quit, but only because no one would cover her shifts after her arrest. The hospital couldn't take the risk, they said. They weren't an immigration issue, just business. This is what collateral damage looks like. The human cost of a mistaken raid, of a mask, of a name on a list. In a June 2024 ACLU report, similar cases are documented across 12 states. Raids that result in no charges but lead to job loss, eviction, even suicide. The system does not clean up after itself. It leaves broken pieces in its wake and walks away before daylight. Meanwhile, the ICE website still shows press releases touting successful operations, full of buzzwords like compliance and homeland integrity. Anna's story? It doesn't make the press brief. It's not part of the metrics. But you saw her, you remember. And now so do the thousands who've watched her footage online, where she is simply tagged, "Woman taken in black mask raid." You start asking the harder questions now, the ones without clear answers. What kind of nation sends men in masks to arrest mothers in the night? What do the children learn from that? What stories do they tell themselves to sleep again? You walk past Anna's old apartment. The curtains are drawn. A "for rent" sign hangs crooked in the window. A neighbor says no one's taken it yet. Bad energy, she shrugs. You don't believe in ghosts, but you understand what she means. Fear lingers like smoke. You remember reading that ancient Roman soldiers wore masks in battle to look inhuman, to unsettle the enemy. You wonder if someone at ICE studied that history too closely. On Twitter, someone shares a meme, a black mask beside a clown face, both labeled public servants. It's satire, but it bites deep, because satire only works when the truth is stranger. Then comes a story out of Ohio covered by WLWT Cincinnati. ICE agents, masked, detained a father outside a gas station while his 2 daughters waited in the car. No announcement, no warrant shown. The girls watched from the rearview mirror. Later, the 11-year-old told her counselor they didn't look like cops. They looked like the bad guys. Is that the legacy we're building? In one of the ethics seminars you audit online, a retired immigration judge named Rosa Sanchez asked the audience, if we remove the faces from law enforcement, how do we recognize abuse when it happens? No one responds. Because the silence says everything. Philosophers will tell you a state's morality is visible in how it treats its least powerful. Right now, that morality is hiding behind black cloth. Tactical anonymity might protect the officer, but it extinguishes accountability. And it teaches fear, not just to immigrants, but to the nation watching. The deeper truth? Fear isn't an accident. It's the point. Fear discourages questions. It dulls resistance. It makes the mask normal. And in that normalization, we risk becoming something we never intended. A democracy that sees enforcement as theater, not service. So now it's on you. You've heard the story, you've seen the footage, you've read the numbers, and maybe you're thinking, but what can I do? That's the trap, thinking you're too small to matter, that the system is too big, too armored, too faceless, that the masks are a permanent fixture. But that's not true. Every law, every policy, every armored vest was created by people, and it can be undone by people too. Start here. Share Anna's story, not just with a retweet or a like, but in conversation. At your dinner table, at your school board meeting. Bring it up when your representative holds town hall. Ask what they're doing about ICE anonymity. Demand statistics. Demand humane oversight. Support organizations that track these abuses. Track Syracuse, ACLU Immigrants' Rights Project, the Marshall Project, Races, Al Otro Lado. Subscribe to their newsletters. Read the lawsuits. Learn the loopholes ICE uses to avoid accountability, like civil warrants disguised as criminal enforcement, or raids without body cameras. Knowledge is pressure. And keep talking about the masks, because once we accept masked agents as normal, we're only steps away from something darker. Write to your local media. Ask why they didn't cover Anna's case. Ask why the term non-confrontational appears in reports of pre-dawn raids with toddlers involved. Challenge that language. Words matter. Words justify violence. And if you live in a safe place, with papers, with peace, use that privilege. Not as a shield, but as a spotlight. Shine it where others can't. Because here's the truth. Anna's children will grow up with that morning burned into their nervous systems. No one can undo that. But we can make sure fewer kids live through it. We can unmask the system, literally. And if you're still watching, still here, still breathing, then you're already part of the story now. Be the one who doesn't look away. Slow your breath now. Let your shoulders drop. You've walked through dark corridors of policy, fear, and fragile memory. But here's something soft to hold on to. Anna found a new apartment. A church helped her get back on her feet. Her son is speaking again. Quietly, yes, but with words. And that matters. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper between two people who choose to care. So take that energy into your day. Look up your city's local ICE accountability measures. Write one letter, or talk to someone who thinks these raids only happen to criminals. Challenge the myth with a name, Anna's or Leo's, or your own someday. Let this story settle into your skin, not as a wound, but as armor. Thank you for staying with me, for choosing reflection over distraction, for seeing the mask and asking why it's there.